Welcome to Frank Stajano Explains, and today's topic is RSI, repetitive strain injury. Repetitive strain injury is a problem that afflicts, among others, computer users, and this video is intended as a warning and instruction so as to avoid RSI. However, I imagine that the people who are most likely to click on this thumbnail are the ones who already are suffering from RSI or related things and want to find out what to do in that case. And I am not a doctor. Well, actually, I am a doctor. I have a PhD, but I'm not a medical doctor. I'm not the type of doctor that cures people. But what I am is a former sufferer of RSI. I have had a very serious, very bad case of RSI for many years, and I am going to use this video to share my experience and hopefully help you not get into the same problems and get out of it if you are already somewhere similar to where I was. So if you use computers, you are at risk of this problem. It is not something that exclusively affects computer users. When I finally got this problem myself, I learned many things I didn't know, including that many musicians have this, that people who do other things like carpentry or other kinds of work where you do repetitive patterns with your hand can also develop this. It's not exclusively for computer users, but I had only heard about this in relation to computer users, and this is what I'm addressing particularly in this video. So I very strongly encourage you to learn proper typing technique when you are working at the computer, and I've made another video about this which you may have already seen on the channel, and if you haven't, then I encourage you to check it out. Proper technique involves primarily good posture. I'm talking about a much worse kind of pain, where you do something, it is painful, and then the pain lingers on for hours, for days, for months, and it may take years for this to go away. And you may speak with other people who had it worse than you, and they may say, well, it may never end. For your whole life you will always be in pain, and that becomes quite scary, especially once you start experiencing how strong, how intense this pain is. So what happened to me? It was towards the beginning of my PhD. I was under a lot of pressure and stress and change from my previous job to this PhD as a mature student, and I was working on one of my papers, maybe one of the first of my what would become my one of my first peer-reviewed papers, typing, trying to meet deadlines and stuff like that, and I started having pains in my hands, wrists, and forearms. And at some point these pains became quite intense, and nobody knew what to do. Well, you have pains, well, you have pains, just take rests and they will go away. And you would take rests, and of course you couldn't take that much of a rest because you had your deadline, but the pain wouldn't really go away. And it became quite bad, and it seemed like doctors wouldn't really recognize this as a medical condition. There was someone else I knew who seemed to be in a worse situation than me, and could not work at all, and was not being acknowledged as suffering from a medical condition because there was dispute with health insurance company who said, this is not something that is a medical condition, because if they had recognized it as such, then they would have had to pay for this person not being able to work for many years, and lots of this type of issues. We're talking the late 1990s. It was difficult to find doctors that would understand what exactly this was, how it could be cured, how it could be treated. I was at some point referred to some specialist in London, and so I had to go to London. Very expensive visit. They checked me out and they said, yeah, well, we could do this type of therapy. There's no guarantee that it will do anything for you. There's nobody knows how long it will take. It may take months, it may take years, and even after that, there's no guarantee anything that you will overcome this. But and it was quite inconvenient to go to London and quite expensive to go to this treatment. So I didn't pursue that. But the pain, you have to understand what kind of pain that was. There was a pain in here, both arms, sometimes pain in here. It was a pain that was really staggering, really quite intense. And I was, of course, an adult, and I didn't cry like a 3-year-old does when she gets an injury. But this was something where tears would come down my eyes from the pain, even if I was not crying. It would just happen. It was so hard. Sometimes I would wake up in the middle of the night from the pain and not be able to go back to sleep just because of the pain. And sometimes you'd say, okay, well, I'm not going to type for a day. I'm going to take a break. And then the next day, after having not typed for 2 days, you'd have a bout of this super intense pain, and you say, like, that's not fair. I have not been typing for 2 days. Why do I get this pain now? What have I done? What's my guilt? I mean, there's no guilt, but it was really painful and also really scary, because if what happens is you don't type, you don't do the thing that you know causes the problem, but still you get pain as hard a pain as you used to have before. Doesn't make any difference that you have stopped typing for 2 days. And of course I couldn't do any of my work without typing. Then what's the perspective? If I can't use my hands, if I can't use my arms, what's left to do for me? Anything that I'm good at goes through being able to type on a computer, right? All my professional competence depends on being able to interact with the computer. If I can't do that, what am I left with? Then I realized something I never realized, how precious my hands were. Even if I just quit my job and change careers altogether, what can I do? All the other things I enjoy doing, playing music, playing the piano, requires my hands. Doing martial arts requires my hands. Nothing of what I enjoyed could be done without hands. What am I without hands? I'm completely lost. And so it was really scary and really depressing. You feel like, everything you have ends. Well, of course, not everything, but when you are in that situation, it really feels like your world collapses. What have I done to deserve this? Well, okay, I typed. Was it so bad? What should I have done instead of typing? I really don't. I can't survive with this pain. It's really scary. So one doctor I saw took several steps back and told me we should not be treating your arms. What really happens is your nerves, and what really causes all the trouble you've been having is primarily your posture. So when you're sitting at the keyboard, you are slouching, your back is banana shaped instead of being sitting upright, and this compresses your vertebrae, and from your vertebrae there's nerves that go out to various places. I remember, I'm not a medical doctor, and when these things get compressed and squeezed, then this is the root of many of your problems. And the way you use your hands, the way you position your hands and forearms. If you're resting, when I started having these pains, I got my system administrator gave me a wrist rest, helpfully. Wrist rest, very bad idea. It was a kind of a length of prop with some padded cushion on top, and you could rest your wrists while doing that. And that is very bad, because this means the wrist is compressed while you rest it on the wrist rest, and you're typing through this compression. So how does the hand work? The hand has fingers, and you can move the fingers. And you know that moving things is based on activating muscles. So where are the muscles that move the fingers? You know, the arm has the biceps muscle. When you're a kid, you want to have a strong biceps, look strong like this. And so it might be excuse for thinking, I know I've met people who thought that just like the biceps, you have a muscle here that moves this part, the fingers must be the muscle here that moves this part, muscle here that moves this part. That's not at all how the hand works. If I were to take off this jacket and shirt, then I could show you that the muscles that move these fingers are actually all in here. There's some much bigger muscles than anything that could fit in the fingers or in the hand, and they are the ones that move the fingers when you do that. So all these muscles are in here, and there are tendons that go through your wrist all the way to the fingers that get pulled to do this, underneath to do this, and over to do that. And all these tendons and stuff go through your wrist. So there's a tunnel, the carpal tunnel, through which all this stuff goes. And if you are resting on this wrist rest, then you're compressing this tunnel while it is activating these pulleys and these tendons and so on. And so there's more and more stress, and then swelling, and the more it swells, and in a vicious circle, the more it constricts this tunnel, and the more everything gets inflamed and in pain. And this is also why, besides not wanting to rest your wrist while you're typing, you also don't want to be in this position, which is given by those keyboards that have an inclination here. Never use those props for putting your keyboard at an angle. They are very bad for you. Never rest your wrists on the desk, or even worse, on the edge of the desk while you type, because all these things compress this carpal tunnel, and all the tendons that need to move to flex your fingers are going to be stressed and compressed, and you're going to have irritation and swelling, and everything will become more and more painful, and the more you do it, the more painful it will become, and the more it will swell, and vicious circle along those lines. So anyway, typing with a poor posture without sitting up straight also causes problems with compression of nerves. This is not moving parts, this is nerves from your spine to your forearms. So you should make a position, make a workstation that allows you to work in a sensible position. I'm not saying a comfortable position, because while you are, let's say, uneducated, you might find that it's more comfortable to be just slouching like this. And it may feel comfortable, but if you use it for typing, it's going to be pretty damn uncomfortable. You're going to be in excruciating pain. So learn to sit up straight and type in a correct position, and then from time to time take breaks. Take breaks, drink water, walk, like this, relax, whatever. You don't have to stay at the keyboard from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. or through the night, even worse. So if you feel the pain and just soldier on because you have a deadline and you need to get things done, then this thing will aggravate. If you say, well, I have a pain, but it comes and goes, and if I just ignore it, it will go away by itself. This is wrong. It will not go away by itself. It is going to become more and more and more painful, and you're going to do more and more damage, which will be harder to undo. So as I got into greater trouble, then I met more people. I was, introduced to other people who had RSI. And there's many varieties, there's many things that can go wrong. It's not just the carpal tunnel, there's many other things, and different people have different things. And there was a colleague here in the department. I was still a PhD student. This person was, I think, a lecturer, and he had a pretty bad case of RSI, and he told me, this is stuff that once you get it, it's for life. There's nothing you can do about it. And believe me, I've been in this for several years. I've done a variety of things. I'm now resigned to the fact that I will live all my life like this. I think he was in his 30s. And that really scared the shit out of me. I said, how can I do that? And so he told me what he was doing to cope with that. And he had a program for using voice for typing in his computer as opposed to typing on a keyboard. And he said, this program, you can dictate to it. It was called Dragon Dictate. And it was a program that's fairly primitive by today's standard. You had to you had to speak by separating your words out. Imagine that you have a full stop after every word. You had to speak like this, otherwise it would not be able to recognize the words. And it was a pain in the ass to type anything like that. Of course, it would also make mistakes besides you having to write that. So in the time that I started adopting this thing, another version of this program came out which could do continuous speech recognition, which tried to do continuous speech recognition. It was called Dragon Naturally Speaking. And with that, you could speak like I'm speaking now, and of course the words are all running into each other, and it would do its best at interpreting this. And if you've never seen that, and remember this was the late 90s, this looked like magic. Now, except if you then had to use it because you couldn't use your fucking hands, then it was like hell, because most of the time it wouldn't really work. So you would say things, and after a few seconds these things would appear on the screen. So if you tried looking at the screen to see whether it recognized your speech correctly, then you would completely lose your train of thought because of this lag of a few seconds. So you're saying a sentence, and then after 2 or 3 seconds you start seeing the beginning of the sentence appearing, and then you forget what you were saying in the rest of the sentence. It was really difficult to keep up looking at the screen. If you decide not to look at the screen, you just say your thing as you wanted to say, and then you look at it once a full paragraph is up there, then it would look all right, except that some things would just sound similar but would not be what you said, and you might not spot them. And so these things would be remaining in text, and so many times this happened that something sounded a bit similar was substituted for what you meant, and then so what did that's what I meant. You have to go and correct. Also, there was the fact that if you're speaking and you cannot use the keyboard, you also have to speak to move the cursor around, go back and correct the word. You made a mistake, or say, well, correct this word. And there was a kind of meta language to activate things that were not just, transcribe this. And I forget what the rules were for activating meta language, but there were some special words that naturally speaking would recognize to say, okay, go back a word, move the cursor there, delete this, and so on. Except that some of the time it wouldn't understand the command as a command, and it would instead type it out as other words that it had misunderstood. And then you'd get more and more pissed off because you meant delete this and it didn't delete it, and it added something else that sounded similar to it. And you'd need to delete more things, but by that time you got more and more upset at the program because you were losing the brilliant thought that you had and you wanted to write down. You got involved in this correction, and the more it failed at the correction, and the more you got upset, and the more you got upset, the more you spoke in an altered voice, and the less you would understand it, and so the more mistakes you would do, and again another vicious circle. And this is not to mention the countless afternoons that you had to spend initially to train this by reading Alice in Wonderland, or reading a piece from Dave Barry that actually I enjoyed because Dave Barry is my favorite humor writer. So I had to read out loud a number of chapters from Dave Barry so that it would learn my way of saying things. Anyway, that was a major time investment, and it didn't work very well, and it was quite frustrating, but it was a lifeline as opposed to not being able to do anything. And so as things progressed, I mean, for some of these things it was totally useless, such as programming. I mean, programming where you have to put every symbol has to be precisely what you say, and you can't look them up in a dictionary because your variables are some combinations of words with camel case and so on. So there's no way that they would be in a dictionary. So you had to type those things by hand, and so I was kind of saving a budget of, if I very cautiously type those few things, then and I don't type anything else, and everything else I do, anything that's English prose, I would just dictate, no matter how annoying it was to use the dictation program. Then I would save my arms and my wrists just for that. But still, pain would still occur, pain would still be very intense, and it didn't look very good. And I heard of other famous people who had RSI and also were dealing with this dictation stuff, and everybody was do what you can because we're stuck. And I was also referred to some kind of physiotherapist. I imagine the physiotherapist would do some kind of massage, but he didn't do any. I think he did initially. He did a bit of massage, and then he said, no. Now what you need is this magnetotherapy. So magnetotherapy, there would be a kind of cloth put over my forearm, and then some machine would do something, putting electricity and magnetic fields through this cloth and through my arm. And it didn't feel like anything was happening, but I had to go there. It took about an hour cycling to the physiotherapy practice, and then about 3/4 of an hour of this treatment, and then another hour to go back home. And I think I did that a couple of times per week or something like that for a long time. And at some point I asked this guy, maybe I can do that on my own. I can do that at home. If all you're doing is sticking me, attaching me to this machine, why can't I just do it by myself? So I asked him the parameters of this, and I got myself a kit for building this magnetotherapy machine. I still have it somewhere. I built this machine, and I used that, and I was using it every day, and I felt nothing from this treatment. I don't know how much it contributed, but anyway, gradually over the years I got a bit better, and then better. I think if you are stuck with RSI yourself, one thing that really helped me was to keep a diary in the form of the following form. So I put my forearms on a scanner, or it could be a photocopier, and I made a picture of this, like this. And I shrank this picture, and I replicated 7 times on a page. And so one page would be 1 week's worth. And so every day I would fill in this picture of my forearms and highlighting with a pen where it hurt. And then next to it I would write some comments about how much it hurt and what I had done and so on. Kind of mini diary. There was space for just a paragraph next to the picture, and the picture highlighted where it was painful. But doing that religiously every day for many months, I could then see what I could not perceive, which was that the area of the pain was actually very slowly shrinking. And so by having correct posture, by perhaps doing the magnetotherapy, by being careful about not doing any more typing than necessary, by doing all the things that I was advised to do, but it felt like they made no difference whatsoever, if I recorded them in this diary, I could see that very gradually they did make a difference. And I was improving, even though it was still painful. I could see that maybe 3 months ago the pain was from here to here, and it was level 9 out of 10. And then later I could see, well, the pain was not all the way to here, it was just up to here, still painful, still maybe an 8, but 8 is less than 9, and this is less than this, And so something was happening, and so this is what helped me by giving me some ray of hope that things were getting better, even though I didn't feel it day to day. Day to day, it was still feeling like shit, and it felt like I had no perspective of ever getting out of this. Just very, very depressing. But in practice, if I compare my diary pages across months, I could see what something's happening. Hang on, keep doing it, because slowly, 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 eventually, this will go down from a 9 to an 8 to a 4 to a 3, and this area from here to here, it will become smaller. Maybe one day it will go away, and actually, eventually, it did go away. So it is possible to get out of it. It is possible to retrain yourself to work typing in good posture. If you have had that much pain, you will have an extremely strong incentive never to have it again. Nothing is worth going through that pain. No deadline is so important that you can't postpone what you're doing, so that you can take a break and you can type in good posture. There is nothing that is so important that you should give yourself RSI for doing it. I really believe it. If you are a person who has never had RSI, then my message to you is, first of all, congratulations, and second, make sure you stay that way. It's really important. I don't want you to ever get into that. It is really, 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 really unpleasant, really painful, and more than painful, scary. Because if you are in a situation where you start to believe, I'm never going to be able to use my hands without pain ever in my life, then that paints the rest of your life in black, and can be quite hard. So be scared. Be scared if this helps you in taking this seriously. Take this seriously and learn correct typing technique. It will also help you be a lot more productive if you learn correct typing technique. But whatever you do, please do it for safety, for your health, for not getting into this very bad medical condition. It is a condition that the onset of which is quite sudden. You go from not noticing that there might be any problem to having rather serious pains rather quickly, a matter of a week or something. And it goes away very, very slowly, a matter of years. So once you start doing something about it, before you get out of it, it takes years. But it is possible to get out of it. I am living proof. I had a pretty bad case of it, and now I am completely free of it, and I have been for many years. So don't. What I was told by this colleague, I don't know where he ended up. He's no longer with the department. Hasn't been for a long time, and I haven't seen him since I got out of this. But I don't know what his current situation is. But he told me, I will have this for the rest of my life. Probably you will too. That was not true. Okay, it's not necessarily going to be like that for everyone. There are cases where you just go through it, get out of it, and it's over. And it really is over for me. I don't feel any pains whatsoever. But I am then careful to always type properly so that they don't come back. If you are a sufferer now, then please have faith that it will be possible for you to get out of it. You should, besides doing all the things of proper posture and sensible technique and typing as little as possible and finding ways to rearrange your work so you don't have to type. And I'm sure that if you have to use the speech transcription programs, they must be much better now than they were 20 or 25 years ago. So you may have a better experience typing by voice than I had in the late 90s. But also find a doctor who respects this as a serious medical condition and who believes it can be treated. Not all doctors do, but unless you have someone competent to help you with, you're going to have a much harder time. Find something that validates something or someone who can validate that you have something that should be taken seriously and you're not just whinging. And I found help in a book, which I don't know, I should go and try and find it, see if it's still in print. This book, Repetitive Strain Injury. I got that while I was in the worst part of my condition, and I found it quite validating and comforting, not reassuring, but acknowledging that this was a problem. I tried writing to the doctor who wrote the book, and he never replied. Someone in the US, so it would not have been practical as trying to have try to be cured by this doctor. But he wanted. I just needed some validation at the time. I never replied, but still, the book. I found it quite helpful. There may be others for you now, but it's not something imagined. It's a real thing, and it is possible to get out of it. And if you don't have it, then make sure you never get it, please. I want you to have a happy and productive computing career, and this goes through not having a medical condition by interfacing your brain to a computer. So I don't know if I can say if you liked this video. There's not much to like. It's more unpleasant memories, but I hope that by passing on my unpleasant memories I can rescue some people who would have otherwise got into the same trouble. I hope this video has this purpose, and if you found it beneficial, then please like it, and if you want more like this, then you know what to do. Just subscribe to the channel and share this video with other people whom you think might benefit from it. Let me show you things you want to pay attention to at your workstation. Workstation meaning the whole setup, including the furniture of the place where you work at the computer. If there's any place where you're going to do any amount of typing, then you want to set it up so that it is ergonomically proper and is going to allow you to work with good posture. So things to watch out. For example, if instead of an adjustable office chair you had a fixed chair like this. This chair is fine for sitting down and for actually for writing. This is pretty comfortable. It's pretty comfortable for me. This is a good position for me to write. But the same position is not good for me for typing. If I try to type, then I sit up straight. My arms are going down. You see, my elbows are lower than my wrists. This is not a good position to have. I would need to be sitting slightly higher to be comfortable typing. The position for typing and position for writing longhand is not the same. If you compare these two chairs, the adjustable chair, I've adjusted it to a few centimeters higher, because that is what lets me sit at the keyboard with my forearms horizontal. That's where they need to be, just like for playing the piano, like that. In the piano you have these adjustable seats for exactly the same reason. This is the position you want to be, with your forearms flat, the back of your hand also flat, and the fingers of your hands going down in this claw shape on the keys. And if you're a lady and you have long fingernails, this is going to be a problem for hitting the keys properly, because this will encourage you to hit the keys with this part of the finger as opposed to this part of the finger. This is a correct thing, but you can't do it if you have a long fingernail. So you'll try to hit it like this, and to hit it like this, then you will have to type in some kind of way like this, where basically some part of the muscles in your hand straighten up the finger like this, and some other part make it go down, and you have like two sets of muscles fighting each other to type. What you want instead is to have this position. And so if you're going to use a keyboard, then please trim your fingernails for the sake of your health, and type like this. And you should hold your hands so that they are straight. The hands are in a straight line with your forearms, not like this, not like this, but like this, and then you type with a straight back. Please don't slouch like this or like this. Don't type like this. What is bad in here? Your spine is banana shaped, C shaped, and my hands are resting here on the edge of this desk. All bad stuff. You want to have a straight spine, not compressing the vertebrae which compress the nerves and all that bad stuff. Not compressing your palms or your wrists against the edge of the desk, keeping it straight like this. And you also want to be looking at the screen comfortably, without having to bend your neck down, or especially up. I mean, down a bit is okay, but up is very quickly painful. I used to have an even bigger screen, and I'm a maniac for big screens. And I bought an even bigger screen than this. This is 40 inch. I bought a 50 inch, thinking that I would see better, because my eyesight is also deteriorating. So the small writing was a bit difficult for me to see. So I said, I'm just going to get an even bigger, same number of pixels, but bigger screen. And then I found that I had to crane my neck to see the far corners of the screen, and it was painful. And this 40 inch is actually better for me. So find something where the position and size of your screen is such that you can look at it comfortably without having to bend your neck. And you may have, for a smaller screen, you may have to height adjust it perhaps, and you don't need to spend a lot of money on gas lifting mechanisms or arms or stuff like that. It's okay just to put a few books under it if it's not the right height. But you need to be prepared to adjust the parameters of your workstation to your own body, your own size, your own height, length of your limbs and stuff, and condition of your eyesight, how close or how far you are from the screen and all that kind of stuff. So adjust the height of your seat so that your arms are horizontal. If by doing that you are not touching the floor anymore, because your legs are too short to touch the floor once your arms are horizontal, since the height of the desk is not a parameter you can usually change, then in that case get yourself a footrest, or even two encyclopedias or something, something to rest on, because if your feet are off the floor like this, then you are restricting the blood flow here, with the edge of the chair pressing on the underneath of your thighs, and that is also bad if you're doing that for several hours a day. So always have your feet solidly resting on floor. Don't slouch, but sit up straight. You want lumbar support, this curve in your spine. You want it to be supported by the chair. This chair has a kind of curvature here. In fact, in this particular chair, you can also adjust this curvature by pumping up this. This inflates a little balloon in here, not by very much, but you can feel, if you're sitting on it, you can feel that the bulge increases slightly. And you can also adjust, as another control here for adjusting this angle, and you want it so that you can sit up straight and you don't slip forward, and at the same time you don't compress your leg. If you send it too far back, the forward part is lifted up, and it will again constrict the blood flow in your legs. You don't want that. So you have to be comfortable. You have to be able to move the keyboard so that you find a comfortable position on your desk. If you have armrests to your office chair, I'm very annoyed by the armrests. They often interfere with me going under the desk as much as I would like. They bump here. Plus they can also be bad for your RSI in the same way that resting on the desk or on the wrist rest is. If you are typing with your arms on the armrests, then you're again compressing things in your forearm while they are moving. Your muscles and tendons shouldn't be compressed while they're operating, and so the armrest's purpose is for you to rest when you're not typing. Then you can put your arms on the armrest. I don't really feel much benefit from that, and I find it's just annoying to have the armrests around when I'm moving a chair or when I'm trying to type. So I just either buy an office chair without them or remove them if the office chair only comes with the armrests. Bad things to do with your hands include keeping, for example, one finger out, one finger out. I mean, if you learn to touch type, and I have another video on that, then you will obviously use all 10 of your fingers simultaneously. Well, in the same session you will always use them. You will not hold one like this, otherwise you wouldn't be able to type a number of letters. It's only hunt and peck people who can afford to keep fingers like this. But keeping the fingers like this is not a matter of just being inefficient in your keyboard technique. It's just this will give you lots of pain in your hand. So don't get into those bad habits where one finger is lifted up. Don't get into those bad habits where you are dorsiflexing your hands. This is something that is encouraged by these rests that some keyboards have, these props for tilting up the keyboard like that, making it more like this as opposed to flat. It's a bad idea. If your keyboard has them, don't use them. This keyboard doesn't have them, which is just as well. You don't want that because this compresses all the stuff that goes through your carpal tunnel. You want to maintain this position. Maintain this position straight. And do take breaks. Drink water throughout the day several times. A break an hour, a glass of water an hour. That kind of stuff is always good. Flush out the toxins. And also, if it makes you pee, then a trip to the toilet is also an excuse for having a break. So try to avoid stress. Try to avoid being dominated by deadlines and resist the power of the deadline to lock you to your keyboard for hours on end. It's okay to work very long hours, but have breaks in between. Yes, make sure your the place where you work is the place that allows you to have a good and healthy posture. It's worth investing in making things adjustable and neat so that you are not going to be injured by your work.